So there are a handful of things that as a doctor, I absolutely try to avoid as much as possible. All of these are things that I've either, watched cause real misery in people later on in their lives, or mistakes that I've made myself, or things that I just simply know are bad for me because of all of the research that I've read over the last
I want to tell you about a patient I saw not too long ago. He walked into the emergency room on a Tuesday afternoon, mid-50s, reasonable build, no dramatic injury, no accident. He had simply walked from the car park into the waiting room and could not catch his breath. By the time I called his name, he needed help standing up. I watched him shuffle toward me, one hand gripping the wall, chest heaving, lips slightly pale. And I remember thinking, this man did not arrive here today. He arrived here 20 years ago. He just did not know it yet. That is the thing about the body. Keeps a record of everything. Every choice. Every habit. Every morning. Every night. And it does not send you a warning. It does not tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, this is adding up. Simply waits. Quietly. Patiently. And then one day it hands you the bill. I am an emergency room doctor. And I have been standing at that front line long enough to see exactly what that bill looks like when it finally arrives. I have watched people in their 60s struggle to perform basic movements that a healthy 40-year-old should do without thinking. I have seen the damage that decades of small, daily, completely ordinary habits leave behind inside the human body. Not dramatic habits. Not extreme ones. The quiet kind. The socially acceptable kind. The kind that nobody warns you about because they do not look dangerous from the outside. That is exactly what this is about. This is not a video about smoking a pack a day or drinking yourself into the ground every weekend. You already know those things will hurt you. Everyone does. What I want to talk about are the habits hiding in plain sight. The ones dressed up as normal. The ones your coworkers do, your neighbors do, the ones that get recommended in magazine articles as somehow being fine or even good for you. 7 of them specifically. 7 things I personally avoid as an emergency room doctor. Not because I read them in a headline, but because I have watched what they do to real people over real decades. And in some cases because I made the mistake myself and I paid for it. The science behind each one is not complicated, but it is serious. And once you understand what is actually happening inside your body when you do these things repeatedly, day after day, year after year, you will not be able to unsee it. Hi viewers, I want to ask you something simple and honest. Do you think your daily habits right now are actually moving you toward better health, or quietly away from it? Drop your answer in the comments. Yes or no. I genuinely want to know, because here is the part that most health content gets completely wrong. None of these habits will hurt you today. Not a single one. Do them for a week and you will feel absolutely nothing. Do them for a month and your blood work might still look clean. That is precisely why they are so dangerous. They do not announce themselves. They accumulate. Slowly. Silently. And by the time the symptoms show up, by the time something actually appears on a scan or a test result or lands you in a room like mine, a significant amount of the damage is already done. That patient I mentioned at the start. He was not unlucky. He was not genetically cursed. He was the product of 20 years of habits that felt harmless in the moment and catastrophic in the long run. And the first habit on this list? There is a very good chance you are doing it right now, while watching this, without even realizing it is doing anything to you at all. So let us talk about the first one. You are sitting down, right now. And if you are watching this at a desk, on a couch, in a chair, on a bed, you have probably been sitting for a while already. Maybe an hour, maybe 3, maybe most of the day. And I know that sounds completely ordinary because it is. That is exactly the problem. When the large muscles in your legs are completely still for extended periods, something very specific happens inside your body. Those muscles stop doing one of their most important background jobs, which is pulling glucose and fat out of your bloodstream. They essentially go offline. And when they go offline repeatedly, for hours every day, across months and years, the metabolic consequences begin stacking up in ways that do not show up immediately but show up eventually with force. There is a concept called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It sounds technical, but the idea is simple. It is all the energy your body burns through everyday movement. Standing, walking to the kitchen, shifting in your seat, taking the stairs, pacing while you are on a phone call. Small movements that feel like nothing individually but across an entire day add up to significantly more calories burned than most single gym sessions ever could. Sitting completely still for hours switches all of that off entirely. And this is not just about weight. Prolonged sitting is independently associated with higher risks of cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, and early mortality even in people who exercise regularly. Read that again. Even people who go to the gym. If they sit for 8 to 10 hours a day outside of that gym session, the risk does not fully cancel out. The research on this is consistent and it is sobering. I deal with this personally. Recording and editing means hours in a chair. So I keep an exercise bike right next to my desk. I use a standing desk. My watch prompts me to move every 20 minutes, and when I do not feel like the bike, I drop to the floor and do 30 squats or 30 push-ups right there. Takes 90 seconds. And there is solid emerging evidence for what researchers are calling vigorous intermittent lifestyle physical activity. These short scattered bursts of effort throughout the day, showing real reductions in early mortality risk. Movement does not have to be a workout. It just has to be frequent. But here is what makes this habit even more damaging. Most people who are sitting still all day are also drinking something while they do it. Something that is doing its own quiet destruction from the inside. And most of them genuinely believe it is fine. I am talking about liquid sugar, fizzy drinks, fruit juice, energy drinks, the flavored coffee with 3 pumps of syrup. And yes, smoothies too. I know that one stings. But stay with me because the biology here is important and most people have never heard it explained properly. When sugar arrives in your gut in liquid form, there is almost nothing to slow it down. It floods your bloodstream rapidly. Your blood sugar rises fast. And your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, the hormone responsible for pulling that glucose out of your blood and into your cells. That process is completely natural. Insulin exists for exactly that reason. The problem is not the insulin itself. The problem is how hard and how often you force that system to fire. Every spike costs something. Over time, repeated aggressive spikes begin to wear your cells down. They become less responsive to insulin's signal. They stop listening as efficiently, and that progressive loss of sensitivity is the beginning of insulin resistance, which is the beginning of prediabetes, which is the road to type 2 diabetes if nothing changes. On top of that, elevated blood sugar in its own right causes damage. It binds to proteins throughout the body in a process called glycation. It stiffens blood vessels. It affects nerve function. It contributes to the kind of long-term internal where that does not hurt today and announces itself years later as something much harder to reverse. Now here is where the smoothie myth needs to be addressed directly. A whole apple contains fiber woven structurally through its flesh in a dense intact matrix. Your gut has to physically work to break that down. That work is what slows the release of sugar into your blood. When you blend that apple, you destroy the matrix entirely. The fiber is technically still present, but it is shredded. Structurally useless. The sugar now pours into your bloodstream almost as fast as if the fiber had never existed at all. Think of it this way. Whole fruit is a slow-burning log. Liquid sugar is fuel poured directly onto a flame. They are both energy. They burn completely differently. I drink water through most of the day. Black coffee. When I want something sweet, I eat whole fruit. Medjool dates specifically. Not because I am obsessive about it, but because I understand what I am asking my body to do when I choose otherwise. And if you think swapping the drink for a protein bar solves the problem, I need you to hear what those bars are actually doing inside your body. Because this one genuinely surprised me when I looked into it properly. Walk down any supermarket aisle and look at the health food section. High protein, low sugar, no added nasties, green ticks everywhere, clean ingredients. And people buy them because they genuinely believe they are making the smart choice. I understand that. The marketing is sophisticated and it is deliberately designed to make you feel exactly that way. But flip the packet over. Look at the ingredients list. Not the front, the back. Many of these bars and cereal snacks and flavored yogurts are built on a foundation of refined starches and a compound called maltodextrin. And here is the critical detail that the front of the packet will never tell you. Maltodextrin does not get listed as sugar. It sits in the carbohydrate section, sometimes buried in the ingredients, and it looks harmless. But in your body, it breaks down into glucose faster than ordinary table sugar does. Some of these products spike your blood sugar higher than a chocolate bar would. A flavored yogurt marketed as a healthy breakfast option can carry as much sugar as a proper dessert. Except when you eat a dessert, you know it is a dessert. You are not fooling yourself. You are not operating under the belief that you are doing something good for your body. The psychological damage of the healthy snack myth is that it replaces awareness with false confidence. My rule now is simple. If a food product needs to convince me it is healthy on the outside of its packaging, I am already suspicious of what is happening on the inside. Real food does not need a marketing campaign. And the lesson underneath this one connects directly to the next habit. Because it is not just what people snack on. It is how often they snack at all. And the frequency turns out to be just as damaging as the content. For years, the conventional wisdom was clear. Eat little and often. Keep your metabolism running. Graze throughout the day and your body will thank you for it. My grandmother believed this completely. She lived by it. Small meals, regular intervals, something always nearby to pick at. And she was not alone. This idea was repeated by nutritionists, printed in health magazines, passed down through families as established fact. The problem is that the science moved on. And the picture it painted was considerably less comfortable. Every single time you eat, your blood sugar rises. Every rise triggers an insulin response. Insulin does its job, clears the glucose, but it stays elevated slightly longer than your blood sugar does to make sure the job is fully complete. When you eat breakfast, then a mid-morning snack, then lunch, then an afternoon snack, then dinner, then something small before bed, your insulin level never truly returns to its baseline. It stays chronically elevated throughout the entire day. And chronically elevated insulin tells your body one very specific thing. Store fat. Do not burn it. Hold on to everything. Insulin is a storage hormone. That is its function. When it is constantly present, your body remains in storage mode around the clock. Over months and years, this contributes directly to insulin resistance, abdominal fat accumulation, and eventually type 2 diabetes in people who are already predisposed. I eat 3 meals a day. Nothing between them. I run an overnight fast of at least 14 hours, often closer to 16. And before anyone suggests that sounds extreme, I am 6'4", and I maintain a healthy weight without tracking calories or restricting food groups. The fasting window simply gives my body a genuine extended period where insulin is at its lowest and my cells are free to repair, regulate, and burn stored energy the way they were designed to. The marketing around healthy snacks has convinced people that hunger between meals is a problem to be solved immediately. It is not. It is normal. It is your body doing exactly what it should be doing between meals. Now we need to go somewhere more personal. Because the next habit is one I got catastrophically wrong for years. And it did not just affect my health. It changed who I was as a person. I used to work permanent night shifts in the emergency department. For a long time I told myself I had adapted, that I functioned fine, that the adrenaline of the work balanced out the disruption to my body clock. And in the department that felt true. I was alert, capable, present. I was good at the job and I genuinely loved it. But at home I was a different person entirely. My stress levels were elevated constantly. I had palpitations that had no cardiac cause. My mood was unpredictable. My recovery from a run of nights took a full week. A full week just to feel like myself again. And I did not connect it to sleep for a long time because I thought sleep deprivation was just tiredness. I thought it was a performance issue, not a health one. It is so much more than that. Sleep is not downtime. It is not your body simply switching off for a few hours. It is when your brain runs its maintenance cycle. Your glymphatic system, a waste clearance network in the brain, becomes significantly more active during sleep and flushes out metabolic byproducts that accumulate during waking hours. Memories are consolidated. Growth hormone is released. The hormones that regulate hunger, specifically ghrelin and leptin, are recalibrated. Your cortisol rhythm resets. Strip that away night after night and every single one of those systems begins to fail. Chronically poor sleep raises your blood pressure. It elevates inflammatory markers. It disrupts insulin sensitivity. It increases appetite specifically for high-calorie, high-sugar foods because your hunger hormones are no longer balanced. And over long periods, consistently inadequate sleep is associated with significantly increased risk of cardiovascular disease, metabolic conditions, and cognitive decline. I stopped the night shifts before my son was born. And I can tell you with complete certainty that the version of me that exists now, the father, the person at home, the one making clear decisions and sleeping through the night, that person could not have existed on that shift pattern. The sleep deprivation was slowly dismantling me from the inside while I was too tired to notice it happening. Protecting your sleep is not a luxury. It is not self-indulgence. It is the foundation that every other healthy habit depends on. Get the sleep wrong and the diet, the exercise, the stress management, all of it becomes harder to maintain. Get it right and everything downstream gets easier. And now I want to talk about something that connects directly to sleep but goes far beyond it. Something hiding in your morning routine and in the walls of your home. Something your biology desperately needs and modern life has quietly taken away from almost all of us. Your body has an internal clock, a master circadian rhythm that governs almost every physiological process you have. When to release cortisol for morning alertness. When to drop your core body temperature for sleep. When to be metabolically active. When to repair tissue. When to consolidate memory. This clock is precise, it is powerful, and it is almost entirely regulated by one input above everything else. Natural light. Specifically, natural light in the morning. Within the first hour of waking, exposure to daylight, even on a cloudy day, sends a signal through your eyes to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock in your brain, confirming the time of day and anchoring your entire biological rhythm for the next 24 hours. Most people never get that signal. They wake up, check their phone under artificial bedroom light, commute in a car or a train, arrive at an office lit by fluorescent ceiling panels, sit there for 8 hours, come home after dark, and repeat. Day after day, season after season. Their master clock is never properly set. It is running on guesswork. And a body running on a disrupted circadian rhythm is a body under continuous low-level physiological stress. The consequences spread everywhere. Disrupted cortisol patterns affect mood and focus. Poor circadian signaling worsens sleep quality even in people who are in bed for 8 hours. Metabolic function is impaired. Blood pressure regulation becomes less precise. The immune system is less coordinated. I will be honest with you. Fixing the single habit, getting outside in natural light every morning, keeping regular sleep and wake times, reducing bright artificial light in the evening, did more for my overall health and sense of well-being than any dietary change I have ever made. That is not an exaggeration. For me, given how severely my circadian rhythm had been disrupted by years of rotating night shifts, re-establishing that rhythm was transformative in a way I did not fully anticipate. And this is the domino that knocks all the others down. When your circadian rhythm is properly anchored, your sleep improves. When your sleep improves, your hunger hormones regulate. When your hunger hormones regulate, your food choices improve almost automatically. When your energy is stable throughout the day, you move more. You make better decisions. You are less reactive, less inflamed, less depleted. It all connects. Now I want to bring this full circle. Back to that patient in my waiting room. Back to the shuffle, the wall, the breathlessness that had nothing to do with a single dramatic event and everything to do with decades of ordinary mornings. None of the 7 habits I have described today will hurt you this week. That is the truth, and it is also the trap. You can sit for 10 hours today and feel completely fine tomorrow. You can drink liquid sugar every afternoon for a month and your blood test might still look acceptable. You can graze all day, eat refined flour at every meal, skip the morning light, stay indoors, run on 5 hours of sleep, and for a while, sometimes a long while, the body will compensate. It is remarkably resilient. It will absorb the damage quietly and keep functioning without complaint. Until it cannot. And when it cannot, when it finally stops compensating and starts showing you what those years added up to, the options narrow considerably. That is the reality I see from where I stand. Not in headlines or studies, but in real people, real faces, real bodies that arrived at that point through nothing more sinister than habits that felt harmless along the way. So here is what I want you to take from this. Do not try to fix all 7 at once. That is the fastest road to fixing none of them. Pick the one on this list that you know, if you are genuinely honest with yourself, is the one causing you the most damage right now. Just one. Work on that one first. Build it until it is solid. And then move to the next. For a lot of people, it is the sleep, or the light, or both together. If that is yours, start there. For others, it is the grazing or the liquid sugar or the hours of motionless sitting. You know which one it is. You probably knew before I finished describing it. I still have a beer occasionally with close friends. I have late nights, sometimes watching something with my wife. I am not asking you for perfection, and I am not selling it either. Perfection is not the goal. Consistency across most days, with honest awareness of the cost when you deviate, that is what actually moves the needle over a lifetime. Because there is no version of a good life at 70 or 80 that does not begin with the decisions being made right now, today. In the ordinary, unremarkable, completely forgettable moments that do not feel like decisions at all. That patient who could not walk across my waiting room without stopping to breathe. He was not born that way. He got there one completely normal day at a time. And so will we if we are not paying attention.